If you have a race coming up this year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or your first race or your 40th race, you're going to want to watch this video. Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm the personal trainer and running coach at Kathletics. Here at Kathletics, we're all about meeting you where you are in your fitness so you can approach hybrid training in a sustainable way. If you have a race coming up this year, whether you are a seasoned racer or this is your first time racing, there are some things that you want to address during your training cycle so you don't show up on race day unprepared and feeling like you're going to completely sabotage what you've worked really hard for. Now, before we go through these, if you're resonating with any of them, give yourself some grace. These all take trial and error, and sometimes it does just take getting experience underneath your belt. So, we're going to go over 6 common mistakes when people show up to their race day, and we'll talk about what you can do to prevent that from happening. Now, you'll notice that several of these have to do with food. So, if you are racing, whether it's a 5K up to a marathon or even beyond that, you want to make sure that you're practicing your hydration and your fueling process during your training cycle, not just showing up on race day and eating whatever you find. So, mistake number 1 is eating a new food on race day. Now, this is really common, especially if people are relying on aid stations when you get to the race. That isn't a bad thing, but generally the race website will say what they're going to have at their aid stations. So you can either train with those foods as long as those foods sit well with your stomach and you know that during your training cycle. Or if you're like, you know what, I've never had that type of food before, I'm just going to bring my own stuff. That's also okay, but we just need to be prepared for that. So then again, we're not showing up on race day and we're trying some random foods from the aid station, or you're bringing random foods from your own home. So again, we want to make sure that we are practicing what you're going to do on race day very early on in your training cycle. So, going along with food, we're going to go with number 2, which is having a protein heavy meal first thing in the morning. Assuming your race is first thing in the morning, we want to focus more on carbs, things that are going to be easily digestible so you have some energy during your race. Now, that doesn't mean completely omit protein, especially if you're having a meal earlier on in the day. Say your race starts at 8 and you're getting up at 5 and you're eating at 5 a.m. You might want to have a little bit of something that has more sustenance to it, but again, as we get closer to that race time, so say you're eating at 7 and your race is at 8, we want to have something that is more carb focused that you can easily digest and have just ready for energy for your race. Number 3, we're still going on with the food focus here. So we know that carbo loading has been a thing. Of course, there is an appropriate way to approach that, but we don't want to make the mistake of also having lots of fruits and vegetables the evening before because that has a lot of fiber. And yes, we want to have fiber in our diet, especially day to day, but when you are preparing for a race the next morning, I don't know if you want to be going to the bathroom all night or having to deal with that business when you're trying to focus on having readily available energy and being ready for your race day. So again, yes, we want to have vegetables, yes, we want to have fruits in your overall diet, but it is something that we maybe don't want to have a really heavy focus on the night before or the evening before your race. Number 4, so veering slightly away from the food focus, but we are still going to talk about hydration. So showing up to the race dehydrated. Now, hydration starts long before just an hour before. We want to make sure that we are staying hydrated within the days before. We are getting enough water. We're also getting enough electrolytes. We need to be addressing this ahead of time so you don't show up and feeling crummy because you are feeling dehydrated. Now, there are some times where you might be dehydrated because of what's happening during the race. So I know that some people do get an upset stomach. If you are someone who experiences GI distress during your race, before your race, after your race, I highly recommend working with a registered dietitian to get that sorted out because that is not normal. Although it's common, it is not normal. Number 5, okay, so still going on with sort of the GI system, plan your poo. I mean, I didn't think I would need to talk about this on the internet, but here we are. If you know you generally go at a certain time of day, try to shift that so you go before your race so you're not having to stop at mile 5 in order to go into the porta potty. I know some things just happen and maybe you're an expert at getting in and getting out, but again, let's try to plan around it. And this also goes back to making sure that we're training our GI for certain foods, making sure that we're not introducing new foods on race day, making sure that we're not having lots of fiber right before the race. But again, if you need to go, try to get it done ahead of time so you can just enjoy the race poo free. All right, now that we've completed that topic, last thing we're going to talk about is number 6, which is the mistake of looking at the route the morning of the race. Now, actually, I was just on a call this past week, and a race director was asked what they wish their superpower was, and it was to have all racers read their race day emails. So, if that's you, please read your emails regarding the race ahead of time because a lot of your questions are answered in there, including what that route is. And if you're working with a running coach, this is something that you should be looking at ahead of time. This is something that I like to look at with my clients who are working on running a race. So within my run coaching programs, we always look at the race and we also plan the program around that. So if there's elevation, if there's certain environmental factors, things like that, but you do want to make sure that you're looking at the route ahead of time and it's not just sprung on you the morning of. And don't get me wrong, I've been there. My first race was a 10K and I did not look at the route. I just kind of showed up and yeah. Don't do that. I ended up okay. But especially if you're doing something on trail, so that was a road race, those are usually a little bit more straightforward. They've got all the cones lined up, they've got the signs. They have things like that too on trails. But if you're doing a trail race, it is easier to get lost. It is easier to not know which direction you're going because the path could be crossing different trails along the way. So look at your route ahead of time. If you want to have a little bit more guidance on making sure that you're looking at all this information and considering it in your training program, click the link in the description to learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs, and you can book a free consult call from that link as well. So again, if you resonated with any of these 6 mistakes, give yourself some grace. But now we know what we should be doing moving forward. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, be sure to like, subscribe, and then we'll see you in the next one.